Hello. I want to talk about inspiration and instincts. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because often I feel that sometimes my instincts or impulses don't serve me when I am not aligned. Like, for example, if you're mad and you have the urge to break something, that is an impulse and an instinct.
Yeah.
But it didn't serve you. And I
Yes.
guess my question is that because I was not aligned?
Yes.
And should I only follow my instincts when I'm aligned?
Well, of course it would be best, but that doesn't mean that you could stop the momentum.
Right.
We were talking earlier about the receptive mode of being really in alignment with who you are and receiving an idea or an impulse. And that's really what we think you want to call inspiration. But you can be in the receptive mode of frustration, or the receptive mode of overwhelmment, or the receptive mode of anger, or the receptive mode of victim or vulnerable. And so whatever momentum you've got going on, we like the distinction that you're making between an impulse and an inspiration. And really, we could call it all impulse or we could call it all inspiration, but the distinction is important, isn't it? So of course, the logical thing would be hold back on any impulse when you're angry. The only problem with that is if the momentum has matured or increased to the stage where that impulse is the next logical step, pretty hard to hold it back, isn't it? And a lot of the world would teach you to withhold when you feel that way, but we don't see any point in trying to teach you something that's for the most part impossible. It's like we've told this story for years about Esther's first discovery of the hills in San Francisco. She just couldn't believe that people were driving up and down them. And then we offered the analogy of what would it be like if you put your car at the top of the hill and decided just for fun you'd see what happened if you took it out of gear and took the brake off and let it just roll down the hill. I wonder what would happen. Well, you don't have to wonder, you know what would happen. Momentum would take it and it would gather momentum. But if when it first began to roll, you stand out in front of it and let it bump up against you, you could stop a moving vehicle with no problem whatsoever. But you wouldn't want to be at the bottom of the hill trying to stop it. And so the answer to how to no longer follow through on an impulse that you can tell by your negative emotion is not going to serve you, and you can tell from your memory that those things don't serve you, is to get out ahead of it, which means maintain your vibration of alignment, which means care about how you feel more consistently so that you don't let those momentums get carried away. But we really don't want you to feel guarded. If it happens, it happens. The best way, and this is going to seem odd, but the best way to keep those impulses that don't turn out well from happening again and again is to not beat up on yourself because of the last ones. You got to be nice to yourself. You got to say it's momentum and it's law of attraction, and I wasn't tending to my energy, and momentum got the best of this, and that was the logical outcome. But now, in this not momentum time, I'm getting out ahead of it.
Right.
Makes sense?
Yeah. So there's never really situations like maybe you're not aligned and your higher self, your inner being is kind of giving you impulses or instincts to bring you out of that?
Well, we want to rephrase your question because you said that's never the case, and we want to say that's always the case. Follow through with the thought. That means that your inner being is not upset with you following the natural laws of the universe. In other words, your inner being stands in that compassionate place of understanding, calling you. In fact, you're onto something important. And we know that you've come to this awareness through your own life experience, which is the best way that understanding comes. Yes, sometimes your inner being calls you through something unwanted on your way to something wanted. This is always true. You're always somewhere in proximity to where you want to be. And so if you're standing in a place that you don't want to be, there's a certain amount of experience that's going to happen as you stand there in that place you don't want to be on your way to where you'd rather be.
Right.
Logical, isn't it? Let us carry that one step further just for emphasis. That means sometimes your inner being might inspire you to the awareness of a problem, because your inner being knows how excellent the solution is going to be, and that the problem is just the first phase of the solution. How about that? So doesn't it make you want to stop beating up on yourself when you have problems and just accept that it's all sort of part of the process?
Yeah.
That's why we talk about step 5. Step 5 is when you're no longer mad at yourself that you're back in step 1, because problems are not a problem, because problems are part of the expansion and evolution. Right. Yes.
I had a question earlier that I sort of threw aside because I felt like I found the answer, but now you kind of just like reminded me of it. And I often find myself wanting to help or please or educate someone or inspire someone who doesn't want that from me. And
you are the only one in this room.
Well, I'm sure my family can agree with this. I can be kind of a smart ass sometimes, and I feel like my intentions are always pretty good, but sometimes it ends up people resent me, and I feel like it's because I'm trying to do it from a place of I'm not in alignment.
Well, maybe, but not always. If you're really in alignment, you will have better timing, and if you're really in alignment, then maybe you will be received better, but not necessarily. More important to this conversation, rather than holding back the way you feel when you are tuned in, is to not worry so much about anyone's reaction to you. So the question is, are you reacting to their reaction? So let's say you're well-meaning, they don't take it well, then you react to them not taking it well. That's an indication that you weren't really in alignment. But if you're in alignment and you mean well and they don't take it very well and that's okay with you, then you were in alignment.
I like that.
Yeah. And all of it's happening so fast anyway. You can tell when they're asking. You're really going to like this. This is what's going on. A lot of people in your lives are asking, but they're not in the receptive mode. So they're setting you up. Because they're asking, sometimes even with their words, they're asking, and you answer, and then they don't want it.
Right.
So let's talk about this a little bit. Let's talk about it in terms of vibration. Let's talk about it in terms of electricity or even electrical circuit. So let's say that someone is asking for something and you recognize it as some level of your being. Let's say you fully consciously are aware that they're asking for something and you mean to help. So you offer your help, maybe in the form of words, maybe in the form of resources. Let's say someone really needs something, so you're offering it to them. But they aren't really receiving it from a place of feeling worthy. They're receiving it from a place of feeling maybe entitled, or maybe
Entitled to the help.
Entitled or demanding of it even. It twists your brain into a knot because you're giving them what you think they're asking for, but there's blowback to you.
Especially the ones that know that I want to help. That's the most confusing ones.
Well, here's what it's about. So what's that blowback about? If you offer current to a circuit that's not open, you will cause a sort of electrical explosion. The circuit needs to be open. This is a new and good conversation to have, isn't it? They seem to be asking and you want to give, and then there's blowback from it because they weren't really in the receiving mode. So how can you survive such a thing? How can you respond to their asking? You know, we want you to know, almost everybody that's asking for something is not in the receptive mode, because step 1 is step 1 and step 3 is step 3.
Exactly. And
so they're asking and you are, here I come to save the day.
yeah.
So you swoop in and you offer and it goes bad and you think, I can't win. I can't win. If I hold back, I'm greedy and unkind. If I give, there's blow. And so the key is really to be only aware of what you're doing with your circuit. Because if your circuit is wide open and their circuit isn't, then it will just flow. It will flow, not to them, but it will flow. But if you let their closed circuit affect you, then that's when that ripple negative effect happens. You just got to mind your own business. And you know what your own business is? Your own business is you being happy. And your own business could include wanting happiness for them. But what your own business can't include is whether their circuit is open or not. And you just can't stand on your head in enough different ways to make their circuit open. So it's helpful if you just say, I can't win in this because it's not my job. And then just be the giver that you are because it's nice to give, and let them be the receiver if they want to be, but hold no stake, have no dog in the fight about whether somebody's ready to receive what you're giving, because they usually aren't.
Right.
You know that in your cultural environment. We would like everyone to understand that there's not a finite pie that is being divided up and divvied out, where some get more than their fair share and some not as much of their fair share. It isn't like that at all. You could take the whole pie and redistribute it evenly among the population of your world, and it wouldn't take long before it had redistributed itself back based upon the vibrational point of attraction of all of the individuals involved. And so let's not talk about the pie anymore, because the pie is constantly replenished. Let's not talk about it like this finite thing. Let's talk about the receptive mode, where it just flows and flows and flows and flows. So what if someone asks and you give and they're not ready to receive? So what? There's more coming, more coming, more coming, more asking, more. There's plenty of others to interact with. You must have no stake in someone else's receptiveness. It'll drive you mad, because you can't control how they think. You can't control what they think. You can't control when they think. You cannot control the vibration of any other, only your own, only yourself.
And I often find myself sort of like, because when those people inevitably end up sort of resenting me for that, I often try too hard to make amends.
Go a little further in that. Resenting you for what?
Because what I offered them as help wasn't what they maybe wanted or expected, or...
They're just mad at you because they're not letting it in, but they don't even have the sophistication to know that yet. It's like Jerry would say, don't be mad at me, and Esther would say, I'm not mad at you, I'm just mad. And you're here.